Hello and welcome everyone to this webinar hosted jointly by Nous Infosystems and Tyto software. Today's topic is Just Automate, Don't Complicate. My name is Easwar and I will be your host for this webinar. We have a full house and to ensure smooth flow, we have few announcements to make. All attendees will be on the listening mode and will be on mute. There is a question panel on the right side of your screen, which can be used to raise questions at any point of time. Our experts will answer the questions during and after the webinar, and the questions which are not answered will be addressed via an email post the session. The agenda for the webinar starts with an overview of automation and its purpose and evolution. We will also look at the current challenges in automation and evaluate if it is becoming overly complex. We will then introduce Sahi, the tool which simplifies web automation. We will also look at some of its key features, followed by an exciting demo of this brilliant tool. This will be followed by a Q&A session, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. The intent of automation is to bring in efficiency in test execution by taking advantage of methods that can compare actual outcomes with predicted or predefined outcomes. Automation enables us to run tests without any supervision. It also means we can perform regression tests smartly. We also know it requires significant investments in training, having the right people, hardware as well as software tools. Automation enables us to run test cases on any application any number of times, ensuring repeatability, reliability, as well as consistency. This also brings down the test execution time significantly, and we can run many tests within short duration of time, which leads to significant savings in cost and time. It helps us deploy the testing resources to do more meaningful tasks. If we look at the evolution of test automation, starting early 90s, the automation feature was pure record and playback. This created individual test scripts for every business function. Each script ran into hundreds or even more lines. While this was accepted and widely used, it had its own challenges. Further developments led to functional decomposition approach, leading to modules or functions which could be reused across several tests. As we progressed, we could see separation of data from test cases and also automate scenarios which are purely data driven. It became more sophisticated when keyword driven framework came in, wherein keyword was used to control the execution of scripts. The latest developments in automation are on intelligent scriptless or codeless automation. In the past few years, we have seen several automation tools, platforms, and technologies getting popular. Automation can be performed using various tools, be it open source or proprietary, or sometimes even hybrid. Each tool comes with its own underlying programming language. There are several frameworks with different standards, and many of them are custom framework. This means designing a perfect automation script requires deep knowledge in programming. This means automation is getting complex than ever before. So, why did we need test automation? The real purpose of automation is achieving efficiency in manual testing. Time and cost incurred in manual testing can be significantly saved by bringing in automation, which is all about speed, reusability, and reliability. Some of the myths related to automation include everything can be automated or all tests can be automated. Automation results in immediate payback. There will be zero ramp-up time in automation. In automation, one tool can completely satisfy an automation requirement or all the automation requirements, and there will be no maintenance costs. So these are some of the myths that has come into automation, which is often or always proved wrong. Also, since record and playback was the original mode of automation, some people believe record and playback is inefficient. But is that really the case? We will have to take a step back and see shortly. We will see how important record and playback in the current scenario. Current web applications contain a lot of jargons. XPaths, conditional waits, CSS selectors, secure HTTP, authentication dialogues, developer toolbars, etc. These have to be handled during automation. All this is leading us to believe automation is becoming more and more complicated. Automation of these features are possible by some expensive tools. This leads to the question, do we always need expensive tools for web automation? Is automation really complex? Can smart record and playback help here? So if we consider the most must-have or ideal features of an automation tool, those things are an efficient recorder, intelligent object identification, easy scripting with a powerful API, support for popular programming languages, and built-in framework which leads in efficiency. So that means automation is possible without complication. Automation can always be made simple with the right set of approach and tools. This is where this brilliant tool Sahi can help in web automation. Sahi is from Tyto Software, and we have Mr. Narayan, the CEO of Tyto, here with us. Narayan will take us through the key features of Sahi.
Thank you, Easwar. I'm Narayan. I'm the CEO of Tyto Software. Sahi is the product that we have. Sahi is a tester's web automation tool. We started as an open source product in 2005 and went on to launch a pro version in 2009. We are very well received, and we have had companies large and small adopting the product for their test automation needs, specifically web automation needs. We have over 250 enterprise clients across the globe as of today. We have 150 plus daily new installations and growing, and we have had about 90 releases so far. It's a pretty mature and stable product, business ready for people to actually pick and start using. As we say, it's a tester's web automation tool. Pretty much everything that you would need out of a web automation tool already works out of the box with Sahi. Some of the key features of the product. The main thing is, if you're testing your application on one browser now, it's not sufficient. You need to be able to test it on all browsers. So multi-browser support is something that we are very, very strong on. Sahi supports all modern browsers on all operating systems, specifically IE, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, and Opera. Now, the way Sahi works is by using a proxy server and injected JavaScript, because of which any browser and any operating system which supports Java and any browser which supports JavaScript and proxies will be able to be automated using Sahi. That encompasses almost all the new modern browsers that are available, including mobile browsers. So we have normalized the scripting such that what you write for on one browser will work on the others. So the same script works across all browsers and operating systems. We also have recorders on all browsers, which helps you, especially if your application is tuned towards enterprise users and you have IE as an Internet Explorer as a major browser being used in your client base, then Sahi is very well suited because it has recorders on all browsers. And as I mentioned, it plays back on mobile browsers too. One of the challenges that end users or the test automation engineers face is object identification. If you look at some of the other open source tools available, they go for technologies like IDs, CSS selectors, or XPaths. These technologies have a lot of technical input needed to make it work. If you don't have IDs on all elements, you may need to ask your developer to add IDs, which is a additional pain for the developer. If not, you may actually go with XPaths and CSS selectors. But given because of the way XPaths themselves are, XPaths can be really expensive to maintain. What you write now today the automation script which uses a particular XPath today may break with the new release of the product because some small UI element may have changed on the browser. Now, the first suspicion that you may have when your script breaks in such cases is always your XPath. You go around figuring out, hey, did that have trouble? Then you go in and launch your developer toolbar, look at it and see, hey, is this XPath still matching? If yes, and then you go on. So the whole point of the automation is that it should automate this task of verification easily. So it should have automatically told you whether the error that is, whether the failure that is happening is because of the automation, because of the application under automation failing, not because of the script itself. Right? So we make sure that the object identification in Sahi is extremely simple. It uses like various DOM elements to identify different elements. It uses other nice ways of identifying elements one with respect to another, using near, under, left off, right off, etc. There are various ways by which you can identify these. A test automation script may fail just because something loaded a little more slowly than it was when it was being recorded. So flakiness in the test execution just because something loaded faster or slower is a constant problem of web automation testers. So Sahi takes care of this by automatically waiting for all page loads, AJAX requests, and frames and iframe loads. So what this does is it removes almost like 50% of the code that you normally write in other tools, because you don't need those extra statements of wait for this, click on this and wait for something, click on this and wait for something. That means like 50% less maintenance that you have to do. Plus, these waits that you normally put in these various other tools is very much dependent on the state of the browser at that point of time. So it adds complexity on, okay, what should I wait for? How do I make it wait for this? What is the particular condition? All these questions go away from the overall automation process if the test tool can automatically wait. So Sahi automatically waits for all this. So your tests are fairly robust, like it doesn't fail randomly. It'll wait for the AJAX request. And this happens in all browsers. It's not specific to a single browser. This also uncomplicates the test code, because now you're only talking about your interactions with the browser and not what you need to wait for. For example, you could just say, you set the username, set the password, and click login, and then go on to the next screen to do something else. You don't have to add waits after the click, etc. to say, okay, wait for this. So the number of random failures that you get with Sahi are much, much lesser. Not only does Sahi automatically wait for AJAX, page loads, and iframes, what it also does is, like if there is a failure, suppose it tries to click on a button and the button is not available on the page right now, it retries the step of clicking 5 times. So normally a step executes in Sahi at an interval of 100 milliseconds, but when there is an error, it will retry it after every 2 seconds. So it will retry 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds, like this will retry, and at the end of it, only when it cannot find the particular button after like about 10 seconds will it fail. So that makes sure that even if there were some set timeouts, etc., JavaScript code which has timers, if they were actually to pop up a button, even that would be caught by Sahi. Right? Combined with the automatic waits, this particular automatic retries makes the scripts very, 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 very stable. You wouldn't get too many false negatives when you're running Sahi scripts. Now, the next thing you want is, a trace or an audit trail of whatever you're doing, or logging, right? So Sahi automatically takes care of the logging. So every step that you write in a Sahi script is automatically logged, and it's logged into a database. It's not just in script in text file. And the database itself, it comes with an H2 database, but you can configure it to use MySQL or MS SQL. Now, because of this, the overall code that you write is absolutely focused on what your interaction with the browser is. No plumbing code, no waiting code, nothing else but what you're doing on the browser. So it keeps the test scripts crisp and easy to maintain and easy to understand by anybody who picks it up and uses it. So the logs itself, they're stored in the database. Because it's in the database, it allows you to query it to see how did this script perform over the last 3 months, and see how a script that was passing till like about 2 days back, why is it failing now? You can actually compare those things to see, hey, what's going wrong here, right? So all this is already inbuilt, so you don't have to worry about any of these things. And even the reports that are generated, there are HTML reports, there are XML reports, you can generate JUnit style of reports, any kind of report that you want, because the logs are stored in the database and then exposed as an XML file, which you can we can put any XSLT translation over it and get your kind of output. So it's absolutely configurable. You can modify, tweak your XSLTs to give whatever kind of output you want in the reporting. Now we've talked about the removal of the plumbing, taking care of the weights, and good, easy identification of elements. Now, having done all that, like these were all, when it plays back, okay, does it play back fast enough? So one of the things that Sahi does is like it's extremely, the overall architecture makes Sahi extremely lightweight. So because of that, the playback happens very, very fast. Combined with automatic weights, etc., it takes the minimal amount of time that is required for the application to function properly, and that's the minimum time it will take to actually execute the script. Now, not only does it like run a single script fast and a lightweight way, it also runs in parallel on a single machine. So if you have a suite of let's say 100 test cases and you wanted to run it on Chrome, you can have 5 instances of Chrome running in parallel executing the test cases. So that already like reduces your overall time by 80% because you're running it like 5 parallel threads. The theoretical is 80%, but like when you actually run it, it will be like more to 60%. Not only does it like run in parallel on a single machine, actually the parallel execution you can even do it on Internet Explorer on Windows, and this is one of the only tools out there which actually does parallel playback on Internet Explorer. Now, not only does like Sahi actually do parallel playback of different browsers on a single machine. If you have a suite of 1,000 test cases, you can even configure different nodes. Or you can say that, hey Sahi, this is the master, these are the other slave nodes, and you execute these test cases. Sahi will actually take the responsibility of distributing these 1,000 test cases across different machines, launch 5 browsers on each machine, let's say, and then execute all of them together. So with 5%, you're already reducing it by 25 times, right? So it's a huge amount of time that you can actually save with this distributed playback. And of course, like even with the distributed playback, the overall reporting, logging, etc. is all taken care of. It's all accumulated at the end, like consolidated and given one single report. So is the scripting itself complex? No, it uses JavaScript for scripting. And the reason it uses JavaScript is JavaScript is one language that you cannot escape from when you're using a web application. So any web application, whatever language it may be built on the server, will be using JavaScript. So we use JavaScript for Sahi also, and it's also one of the easiest languages for any new programmer to pick up. Having said that, normally there's a conception that JavaScript has its limitations, that it cannot access file systems, databases, etc. Sahi's JavaScript engine runs inside a Java VM, because of which it has the full power of Java too. So it can access databases, file systems, it can read and write to Excel files, read PDF files. It can do a lot of things that any Java library can bring the power of. Right? So Sahi, like it's extremely simple to use, but also really powerful because it has access to all things that Java can do. And it has an inbuilt Excel framework. The Excel framework is something that most testers seem to want. Business users and other stakeholders also want to participate in the overall test automation process. So they can easily contribute to it if the overall scripting is in a non-technical, non-code based format. So Excel sheets or like spreadsheet-like formats are pretty popular, especially in enterprises. And the Excel framework that we expose is very useful for non-technical users to participate in this overall process. The other thing that we do is, because it's our own the Excel framework is built with Sahi in mind, it exposes the full power of Sahi. While normally if you take like third-party frameworks, you would work towards the least common features of the common features of all the other tools that they aggregate. But here we go to the like full power of Sahi and we are able to expose all of that in the Excel framework. The other thing we have is like powerful suites, because you need to be able to execute all of them in a batch using your continuous integration systems. We have suites where you can add tags. You can actually execute just some tags. Out of your 1,000 scripts, you can actually say that run only the admin module scripts with high priority, and those will be picked up and executed. So we have inbuilt powerful suites which you can control. We have the ability to execute big suites, but it also allows you to trigger these test cases from the command line or from a batch file, or even from the task scheduler or an AND script. So you can actually integrate it with your continuous integration systems, which is what the major focus of automation is overall, that you actually put it to run along with your build systems, which you can do with Sahi. Of course, like at the end of it, like if you need email notification, etc., Sahi has inbuilt ways of doing that. Now, given that these are all possible, does it have any limitations on the kind of complexity your web application may have? No, because of JavaScript and proxy-based approach, it supports like really complex technologies. Like you may be using any frameworks. You may be using Ext.js or Sencha, jQuery, ZKOSS, AngularJS, or any new JS framework that you may want. Like it can support all your own custom frameworks. It's agnostic of all these frameworks. It's able to identify and playback and reliably execute all these on all these frameworks. Apart from that, if you have like 401 authentication or NTLM or Windows integrated authentication in your systems, Sahi supports those two. It also supports external proxies and HTTPS, SSL, all them like pretty straightforward for Sahi. The overall cost of the product, it's fairly well priced. It's $495 per user per year, what this particular licensing amount does is it gives you upgrades and support for 1 year. Okay. After the first year, you may continue to use the product. The product will not stop working, but you will not get upgrades and support. And you can, if you have a testing team of 5 testers, you can actually you need to buy 5 licenses. Each tester can put it on like multiple machines if he wants to, be able to test it on a Mac or a Linux or a Windows machine. So there is no limit on the number of machines you would want to actually, a user may want to put it and create scripts on. And for pure playback purposes, you could have a farm of 100 machines. You could just put, with one license, you can put it on all those 100 machines and execute them. There is no playback specific license per se. So let me actually give the mic back to Easwar, who will take us through a case study and other things.
Coming to an automation tool selection, what factors do we consider? So the major players within the testing community are decision makers and the testers themselves. So from a decision maker's point of view, any tool is welcome, but one of the major things that they review is that how long does it take for my team to master? Does this tool has a shorter learning curve so that my team is quickly come up to speed for POC and evangelize within the organization and then get a comfort feel and then go ahead and buy. Does it have high license cost, support as well as maintenance cost attached to it? That's again a very key factor for decision makers. And in some cases, it might be quite possible that they want to enable a vendor to provide the service. So does this tool support that? Can enablement of a vendor to provide the same service in test automation area? Can it globally distributed teams seamlessly work together? Yes, that's again, now that IT services are truly global, there are considerations where automation could be done from different parts of the world. From a tester's point of view, testers usually see how intuitive the application is. Is it possible to use with commonly available tools? Do we have to learn anything specific? Ease of use for efficient test creation. Is it easy to create tests quickly? Minimum dependency on programming skills. So if that tool requires deep knowledge in programming, testers may not be very eager to learn that. And short learning phase. Do we have enough educational materials in the public domain in terms of self-learning, like videos, tutorials, examples, and webinars, so that people get familiar with the various features of the tool? Is the error logging clear, consistent, and detailed, so that in case of an error, a tester can go and see themselves whether this error is due to a functional issue or whether it is due to a technology issue. So errors have to be detailed so that tester can take a very calculative call on what is the reason of the error. And as we know, each tool will support one or the other popular programming languages. So does it support popular programming languages and promotes reuse so that components developed in such languages can be reused here? And does it have a stable framework? So one of the important things in test automation tool is a stable framework, so that testers can completely depend on that framework without any hassles. So if the same framework is not stable enough, the tester will get confused whether the error that is happening is due to a functional issue or due to a framework issue. So a stable framework is something a tester always would go for. So as you can see, all these features is available in Sahi, and that makes Sahi a tester's perfect automation tool. So Sahi is a tester's automation tool, and because it is possessing these features, it becomes the de facto choice for all testers for automation. We will take a look at some of the benefits of Nous Tyto partnership. For Nous, Tyto brings in a lot of value. Nous and Tyto are partners. Nous is a preferred implementation partner for Sahi. So we have a large team of people who are trained and certified in Sahi. We have about close to 100 plus experts knowledgeable in Sahi. They are trained and certified by Sahi themselves, Tyto themselves. And what this brings to the customer is that the combined value in terms of the service offering as well as the product knowledge to give them a seamless service on this web automation tool. So customers can have a single stop solution for all the browser based test automation challenges, right, by using the right kind of software as well as the services on a need basis. Customers can also enable quicker implementation of our services using our extensive delivery experience. So we are a 18-year-old company, a global company having offices all across the globe, servicing worldwide customers. And customers can also benefit from the fast channel accelerated product support through the Sahi support team in case there is a product issue found which needs to be fixed, and the Sahi support team can quickly let us know whether this is a part of the product suite, and they can also provide a quick patch. And we also provide very competitive service pricing. So these are some of the major partnership benefits that customers can leverage, which is between Nous and Tyto. So I want to bring your attention to a real case study that we have done recently for a customer based out of UK. They had a web application developed in .NET MVC, which will be delivered over 13 to 15 sprints. So it's an iterative development process that they are following, and each sprint will produce one functionality or the other which will be given to the testing team. So they have a very small team of manual testers who are actually validating the functional aspects of this application. So the customer had a challenge in terms of controlling or managing the large amount of regression testing that causes due to this iterative nature. So as we proceed along the sprints, let's say, take for example, if they are in sprint 7. If you are in sprint 7, you have a large set of functional test cases that needs to be regressed, which came out of sprint 1 to sprint 6. So they were looking at a very cost-effective, capable automation solution. So one of their consideration was Selenium, due to the open source nature of the tool as well as the cost benefits. But they also wanted to consider Sahi as we showcase them the benefits. So we proposed Sahi to them. They wanted to do a small POC kind of activity or exercise for one sprint, which contained 80 test cases covering about 1,370 steps. And the requirement was to have these functional test cases tested in 4 browsers, namely IE, Chrome, Firefox, and Opera. So we formed a small team of Nous consultants who are capable in Selenium as well as Sahi. These were 2 different teams, and we started working on them. And what we found is that the customers' test members, testing team did not possess enough knowledge on Selenium. So we proposed that Selenium cannot be directly used. You need to have your own custom framework, which was not very attractive to the customer. So they still wanted to understand how cost effective it will be, and they wanted us to compare the cost benefits as well as the schedule benefits if we go by both the tools. So we did some a few representational test cases we automated using Sahi, and we found that our average step level productivity is 18, whereas in the case of Selenium it was 14. That is, the number of test steps an average tester could automate in any given day is 18 in case of Sahi and 14 in case of Selenium. So based on that, we arrived at the complete script development duration with 3 people in a team. So there are 3 Sahi experts and 3 Selenium experts, and in the case of Sahi, it's coming to 26 days. In case of Selenium, it was coming to 33 days. But as we had spent time in developing a very small Selenium framework for use for this application, it took us about 2 weeks time. So that's about 10 days of time, elapsed time in Selenium if we go Selenium as the tool. So that brings us to a total elapsed time of 43 days for Selenium. So we found that the team was pretty productive from day one in terms of Sahi tool. So with Sahi tool, we didn't have any time spent on any framework development or any supporting action. The scripts were productive. Whatever we could produce in the day could be executed in the next day. So when we produce, say, over a period of 4 days, we could do about 3 test cases, and then on the 4th day, we could actually regress these 3 test cases as well. So if there is any change in any of these test cases, or if there is a new bug introduced, we could easily find that because we ran all test suites at the end of the day. So from a cost point of view, considering a very conservative cost of $25 per hour, the total cost for preparing this is coming to close to 17,000 in case of Sahi and close to about 25,000 in case of Selenium. So at constant comparison itself, you can see about 35% of cost savings when it comes to Sahi. So this is one of the major advantages which Sahi can bring in with respect to Selenium. But please bear in mind that there is a cost of tool attached to Sahi. In spite of that, also the total cost of ownership in case of Sahi is very less than Selenium. So at this point in time, I would like to hand over to Mr. Narayan for taking us through a live demo.
Easwar. I'm now going to take you through a small demo of Sahi. Let me show my desktop. So here I have the Sahi dashboard running. It has a few browsers that are installed on my machine, visible on the dashboard. I can launch the browser from the dashboard and to automate a particular test case. So here I am going to take you through, I'm going to launch Chrome and I'm going to take you through a simple use case that we normally show as a demo. This is the URL of our application. Click on Go. So here you see our sample website. This is like a simple shopping cart where we will be logging in, adding a few books, verifying the total and logging out. Okay. So I call this demo1.sh. So give a name and record. And now as I start performing actions on this, you'll see that the steps are getting recorded here in this place. I put the username, password, and click on login. So all this gets recorded here. Then this is a list of books. I'm going to add these books in different quantities. I'm using 2 books of Ruby for Rails, 2 books of Java, 3 for Ruby, and 1 for Python. And click on add. So what you see here is that this cart gets populated, and we have a total here. Now, one of the things about test cases is you perform a few actions and then perform an assertion on it. To perform the assertion, I press the control key and hover over this particular element. Right? So as I hover over the total, it shows me that it's text box total. Similarly, I can hover over different elements here. You'll see that different elements get identified. So let me come back to the total, and I want to assert on this value. For that, what I can do is click on the assert button here. It gives me a few suggested assertions. It says that assert that the text box exists, assert that it is visible, and that the total is 1550. Okay. Now, it's possible to play around with the system right here. So what I can do is like I can change this to 1560, make the expected value different, and see whether it passes or fails. It says that expected is 1560 and the actual is 1550. So having verified that things work correctly, I've tested again, it works. So I can append this to the script. So whatever steps are performed on this browser are automatically recorded. Whatever I perform specifically on the controller need to be explicitly added to the script. Having done this, let me log out, and here we have the script. Okay, so let's see the script. The script itself looks like this. It says it's fairly simple. Set value in the user, password, login, text box set to 231. Click add, and then verify that, assert that it exists, visible, total, and then log out. So you see that there are no waits in this particular script. Let me play this back. So I go to the playback tab and start typing demo 1 and set and play. So as you see, it fairly rapidly executes it. Now let's look at what happens to the logs. So you click on the logs link here, and it shows you all the scripts that have recently executed, and this is the one that we just ran. We click on this, it shows us all the steps that have been executed. Okay. Now let's take it to one level further with an abstraction. Now the abstraction would look something like this. We edit this particular script, and we try to group together different sections of this into functions with descriptive names. So what we do is, instead of actually leaving it as steps that communicate with the browser, we convert it into functions which communicate better in the business sense. For example, these three would be, you can create a function which is called login with user and password as the parameters. We click continue. So what you see is there is a function that gets created, and there is a function call that is being made for this. Similarly, we could do something like etc. Okay, and we can also give it more descriptive names. So that the overall script looks much better. Okay, so let's save this and execute this particular script. So when you execute this, you'll see that the actual logs look different. The logs actually have these particular steps clubbed together. So if you see this, it actually looks as login, add books, and then the rest of the stuff. So when you are actually looking at the playback of your scripts, you can actually just look at those sections which seem suspicious, and then open it up and see. And here, of course, you can click on any line of this, and it will take you directly to the line of code in the script. And if you want it, you can edit it again from here. Okay. So it gives you a good level of traceability from the execution level to the actual script itself. Okay. Now we have played this on Chrome. Let's run it on other browsers. In fact, what we'll do is we'll run the script on multiple browsers. So you can choose. So as you see, when you actually do this, it actually launches different browsers and starts executing. And Firefox running, all ran simultaneously. All of them say success. And if you look at the logs, it shows you Firefox, Chrome, and IE, all of them pass with success. Okay. Now, the next thing to see is how do you actually. So there are a few things we discussed about. It automatically waiting for elements, etc. So what we have now is a slightly slower version of the same website that we would like to execute this on. So let me actually execute here so that it is visible. Here, instead of I change the starting URL, which is to the slower server. I said this and see that we have not only like made it slower, but we also made it like this particular login screen load inside a frame, and we are executing the same script. Sahi automatically traverses frames, iframes, etc. So, and it also waits automatically for different kinds of different amounts of wait. So you see that like even though it is in a frame, it is actually doing it is slower, etc. The script ran successfully, and in the logs you see that everything was fine. Like it just looks the same. There's no difference between them. Even when you moved the login screen inside a frame or an iframe, and you have actually made it much slower. So if you look at this, like this is like loading much slower than the older website, and it may take variable amounts of time, and in spite of that Sahi goes ahead and finishes this off without any waits, right? Of course Sahi has its the capability to take screenshots. So let's look at the script from by clicking on the scripts link here. It opens up the particular place where this particular script is. I edit the script and force a failure here. So here let us say that I actually make it 1560, okay, and I want a callback when I want to take screenshots when this particular script fails. So I simply add a on-script failure and a step saying take screenshot. So when I do this, it actually, like, whenever there is a failure in the script, which will happen when this particular assertion fails, a screenshot will be taken. So that's all you need to do to actually add screenshot support to this. So let's run the script again. So you see that like when it is going to fail, it's actually going to take some time before it fails, because it retries a few times, and only after the retries have like made sure that it doesn't work, that does it actually go on and fail the particular. Let's look at the logs now. So here, when it actually failed, you have a screenshot, and if you look at the screenshot, it says that it's 1550. So it makes it very easy for you to find out what went wrong. It shows an assertion failure, and in the on-script failure, it shows you that this particular screenshot is what it is. So it lets you actually find out errors very easily. It has a full trace of like what went on. So that's explaining a few things that are powerful about Sahi. Of course, there are other ways to actually like execute multiple scripts in parallel using suites, scheduling them, and handling and distributing it across different machines. So all this is all possible with Sahi Pro. You may want to actually like play around with it. There are the overall documentation is available here, and with the product itself, the overall documentation is available here. So you may be able to go through different things, evaluate, like look at different APIs, and for example, I just used take screenshots, so it shows you how to actually go about doing that, etc. So from this documentation. So if you need anything, you can always look at these things. So I would like to hand it over to Easwar.
Thanks, Narayan, for the wonderful demo. And I think it's now time for us to look at some of the questions that have come through. And I would be taking help from Narayan to get them answered. So Narayan, the first question is from Lisa from Germany. And the question goes like this. Does record and playback really work? Should we use it in the current scheme of things?
See, that's a fairly popularly asked question, and much of it stems from the fact that traditionally recorded playback has failed quite horribly before. The thing is, if the recorder actually records with like good stable accesses, and it makes sure that it is not really dependent on the page structure, etc. The recorder does give a good advantage, because it takes you through the overall first cut flow. And then once you have the flow, then you can actually like make functions, etc., and like call them from elsewhere. So record and playback per se may not be very useful, but recorder itself is very useful, because it lets you get the basic building blocks of building your rest of your actual application testing function. So yeah, you can. I think you should definitely leverage the recorder. Record and playback, maybe not.
Thanks, Narayan. So the next question is from Patrick. Patrick is from Singapore, and the question is, does Sahi support object repository?
Right. Sahi has an inbuilt way of recording in an object repository. So when you're recording the script, there is a checkbox which actually allows you to say, okay, record my objects in this object repository. And from that point on, when you record it, it will automatically move it to the object repository and it will only put in the references correctly. So of course, like the object repository itself is just another Sahi script with name value pairs. So it's very easy to edit and maintain also.
Thanks, Narayan. I think that's a good answer. And this is from Arun. He's from India. He's asking what kind of support is available for Sahi Pro.
We have an SLA of and we respond within 1 Indian business day. So what that means is if you send us an email today, we have email-based support only. So if you send us an email today, we will respond within like 24 hours. And normally what we do is we try to answer as much as possible through emails itself, but if you find that there is a problem and we are unable to understand the question or like there is more input needed, we set up a go-to-meeting session with the customer to see what may be going wrong and answer it online.
Great. So Martin from Boston is asking a question on what other technologies does Sahi Pro support?
Right, I believe this answer is about like what kind of browser-based technologies it supports. So apart from just HTML and JavaScript, like which is the normal thing that loads on the browser, we also support Flex and Applets. So while Flash is not supported, Silverlight is not supported, but Flex and Applets are supported.
Great. Sandra from Bolton, UK asks about can you throw some light on the limitations of Sahi?
See, as I mentioned before, like Sahi is just a browser automation tool. It cannot do desktop automation or like it cannot automate native applications on either the mobile devices or on desktop. It has to be on the browser and running on the browser. Apart from that, of course, it doesn't support Silverlight or Flash. It supports only Flex and Applets apart from the HTML technologies. But as far as HTML technologies is concerned, it's like fairly complete in the way it supports different things.
Thanks, Narayan. This is Neil from Australia asking, when will you use Sahi and open source? So I think it's basically between Sahi and Sahi Pro.
Right. So between Sahi and Sahi Pro, Sahi open source is still supported by us. We do make releases often, even though the last release has been about a year and coming. We have one open source release slated for, it was supposed to be this month, but maybe next month. The thing is, the open source thing is good as a driver to actually get and to do POCs and to be able to actually do basic level of automation. Maybe like if you have a small product and you have maybe 100 test cases, then the open source will suffice well. But if you want guaranteed support, we don't provide support on the open source. So if you want support and quick updates when a new browser comes in or like when something new comes in, it is better to go with Pro because like that makes it commercially viable for us to support the overall thing. So we would say that anything over a particular over 100 test cases of complexity, go with Pro.
Thanks, Narayan. I think we are just about running short of time, but I think I will take one more question. This is from Rob. He's from a financial services company in London. And his question is, what are the new features which are planned for the next release of Sahi?
Right, thanks. That's a pretty important question. So what we have, so far we have been focusing on the stability and the playback robustness. What we have now is more of customer usage, making the usage much simpler. So we have a desktop-based scenario editor, which actually lets you, the framework that we have, the Excel-based framework, it lets you actually create test cases, etc., autocomplete, like showing different parameters of a particular function, what functions are available in your overall code base, etc. Those are easily available in a drop-down, and you can easily populate the Excel-based framework with that. The other things that we have are better support for full-page screenshots and element-level screenshots, which are useful if you want to actually if you have a long page that you want to take a screenshot of. We also have like a lock-related APIs, which lets you synchronize between different scripts. This is basically multiple scripts run in parallel, but if you want to take a screenshot, you need to actually take a lock and then take a screenshot and then do that. So we have better support for those things now. Phantom.js support has increased fairly well. In cases where you want to run a headless browser, it's possible. But having said that, Phantom.js is for the end user, running it on a real browser for testing is a much better option than actually running it in Phantom.js. Because when things fail, you do not know whether it will actually affect your customer or not, because nobody is going to be using phantom JS, they're going to be using a real browser. So
thank you, Narayan. I think we have come to the end of the webinar. But if you still have further questions, please feel free to send it to the email address you see. It's easwarkp@nousinfo.com or narayan@sahi.co.in. Thank you so much for participating. It's been a pleasure having you here, and we look forward to see you again soon.
thank you.